To correct Tien's muslin sloper and transfer it to oak tag, the first thing I want to do is change the neckline correction onto the paper sloper pattern that I used to make this. So what I'll do first is measure down, and that's about 5/8 of an inch. So come down 5/8 of an inch. And I'm also going to say it's about 1/4 of an inch right here. So let's see, 1 3/4 over from center front is 1/4 of an inch, and then I blend it up. So we'll put this aside and bring out the paper pattern front. And this is it. Okay, this is easy. Easy peasy. So we're going to go down, as I mentioned, 5/8 of an inch, and ignoring the seam allowance. So 5/8 of an inch, and this is a right angle right here. I'm going to go fraction less because that seems awfully low. Okay, so here we go. There. Oops, and 2 inches, 1 3/4 over was 1/4 of an inch right there. And that's my guideline. Always have a right angle right here. I'll put a little box, that means right angle. And of course, there will be seam allowance, and the seam allowance will have that little notch right there. Okay, so now what I do is blend this back to the shoulder area. And there it is, right there. There it is. Done. Add my seam allowance, and I used 1/2 inch on this particular seam allowance. I don't like to start with the metal tip sometimes because I'm not sure how accurate it is. So we're going to do this. And oh, also, let's determine on the curve where I started. Put it back on the curve. And it was at, this fits. This is at 1/4. So if I just move that 1/4 up to the seam allowance here, and it blends into the original seam allowance, that should give me the same exact curve as the actual seam, not seam allowance. So here we go. There you go. And all of this gets cut away. This is our 1/2 inch seam allowance. And that's pretty much it, except to measure what this new neckline is. The original one was 4 inches. I'm going to start with 10 rather than the metal tip. So at 10, be sure you're putting the numbers down. If you put the numbers on the top, it's too hard to be accurate. It's very difficult to be accurate that way. So this is 4 1/2. So her neckline grew 1/2 of an inch. And I'm going to write this 4 1/2 inches and cut away the excess. That's how simple this particular type of correction is. And now this pattern for her sloper is a good fit for Tien. Now to transfer it to oak tag, you can get rid of this for the time being and bring out some oak tag. First I'll do the front and then I'll do the back. Now this is not going to have seam allowance. So what I will do is, I think first I'll make a straight line to put this on. I'm going to do that in red. Okay, and I might as well do all my cross grains and everything. So we'll do this in black. Here is one. It's really better to follow completely across. And the waist. And the hip, which is kind of hard for you to see, but it's down here. I'll push this up in a moment, making a straight line for the hip. All right, that's good. Oh, darn. Well, missed a little bit of space there, so I have to reorient this. I have to bring this down. Fortunately, I didn't draw the lines all the way across. Okay, so we'll have to do this again. Here's the waist. I'll anchor this so I don't shift it. Make sure my straight of grain is accurate. I'll put a little circle to know which one is the correct one. I've learned that making mistakes is one of my best teachers. So I don't get too upset when I make a mistake, unless it's, of course, a major mistake. And the hip, hopefully you can see this, but again, I'll move this up in a few minutes. And there. Okay, now, take this away for a moment. Now make these lines permanent. And this will be, well, I'll label this in a while. Okay, so anchor this back on. Actually, I think I'm going to tape it on because I'm probably going to have to move the paper around and it will be difficult for you to see it if I don't tape it down. All right, now with my tracing wheel, first I will establish these darts. The hip line is where I will cut. I'm going to freehand these and then go over them with ink. And when I go over them with ink, I will use the curves to make sure that the lines have a really uniform curve. There we go. Go back to make sure I got the neck. Now I need to do the fisheye dart. This is a professional tracing wheel, but any good tracing wheel will be fine as long as it has the little, it's not a smooth one. Even a smooth one might work, actually. All right, I think I got everything. Put this aside. And Okay. This is a straight line right up in here. There you go. All right. Fill in the darts while I'm here. This is a very slight curve. The shoulder dart. The center of the shoulder dart. Let's see. The shoulders. Armhole. Okay. This is waist, hip, 3 inches down will be her high hip. It's about 3 inches. Yeah, it's right about there, high hip. I'll just put a little dot for there for later. And neckline. I did not get the neckline yet. So remember a right angle here for about 1/2 inch. Maybe not quite 1/2 inch. If you don't have a right angle there, it becomes a point when you make the garment. Okay. And let's put some other things on this. This is TN. Sloper front. And this is her bust line. Okay. This is center front. And I always put the arrows right on center front. Of course, this will be cut out in a moment. A length grain parallel to center front. So I'm going to do the length grain 2 inches in, maybe 1.5 inches in. I think 1.5 inches in. Let's see, what else? Okay, measurements. I'm going to transfer all these measurements. Her neckline is 4.5 inches. Each shoulder is 2.25. Each side of the dart is 1 inch. Of course, each human being is going to be different. The armhole is 7 7/8 inches. This from here to here is 3.5 inches. And from here to here, a total is 8 3/8. Each side of the dart here is 5/8, which means 1.25 inches. And I always like to put circles where these start and end. And now to cut it out. A piece this big is worthy of saving because sometimes you can use them for half-scale patterns, all kinds of things. So I don't usually throw scraps away if they are of a pretty good size. Yeah, center front. I was afraid I was cutting the wrong line. Now we have the front sloper. Okay, that's good for the front. Now let's move on to the back. I have another piece of oak tag and my back pattern. This one needs no corrections, so the first thing I'll do is establish the grain lines. Actually, I think I will not establish the grain lines until I've traced it on this one. So, good. Just show you a different way of doing it. So here's my center back. My hip line. And up here we have the horizontal balance line. It's usually about 4 inches away, 4 inches down from the center back neck. When we get into draping, that horizontal balance line will mean more to you. It helps us keep things aligned and on grain. I think I did not do this one. Everything else. Grain lines. Yes. Okay. All right, now to go over everything. there is my dead. I want to create the center line, and it has to be parallel, exactly parallel to the center back. So there it is. Perfect. Oh yeah. Okay, and then these, this is 1.5 good. I'm starting at 7 and flipping it over, so I start at 7 on this side, creating the same exact angle. Don't think I quite have. Okay, so what I want to do, make sure, is line these up. And there you have it. There's my waist. Good. And it needs to go perfect. That's why I didn't do the grain lines first. It's easy to get them a fraction off. So by comparing, I get them correct. Now this starts at 7. This comes down here. This starts at 7. And we're back in business. All right, there you go. This is the bottom of the dart, top of the dart. I have the neckline. There you go. All right, let's put the information on this. Let's see. This is 1.5 total, so it's 3/4 inches and 3/4 inches on either side. I want to bring my eye's attention to the tips of the darts. This is 1/2 inch. I need to center line here. So it's 1/4 and 1/4. And then whatever other information is on here. Bust grain line. Let's see. Yep, that's good. That's fine. Horizontal balance line, B-A-L-A-N-C-E. Okay. Center back. And a grain line here. I'll do it right about there. The grain line is parallel to the center front and center back on both pieces. Hip, waist, bust. And some measurements. This was 7 3/4, 2 1/4, and 2 1/4. And her neck is 2 7/8. And I think that's really all we need for now. Okay, now to cut it out, and we'll have a full sloper ready to make a garment. If you don't have oak tag, you can always use poster board or any kind of stiff paper. Something that will take a lot of wear and tear, because over time, tracing this off, it does wear the edges of the paper down a little bit. And now we have a completed sloper that we can use to create pretty much any kind of pattern we want. If you liked this video, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and spread the word.